Well, welcome to Upgrade Your Self-Confidence, a masterclass on authentic self-confidence. Last week we talked about self-concept, and tonight we're going to talk about self-esteem. I like to teach 3 pillars of authentic self-confidence, which is self-concept, what we think of ourselves using our mind, self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves using the emotional body, and our self-confidence, which is how we show up in the world and how we are seen and action that we take using ourself, using our physicalness in the world. So tonight we're going to focus on self-esteem. But before we do that, we're going to do a little nice centering exercise. So I'm going to ask you all to sit back in your chair, close your eyes, take a nice deep breath in and out. Place your hands on your lap and just take a nice couple of deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as we breathe in and out, I'm going to ask you to let out a nice big sigh. Let out a few nice big sighs. And really feel that vibration of your voice coming out of your body. And that almost like we're almost tricking the brain or triggering the brain into relaxation mode. Perfect. And once we do that, notice the air coming in through your nostrils. What does that feel like? Check in with the physical body. Notice the sensation of the air coming in through the nose and out through the mouth. What is that sensation like? Check in with your physical body. When the air exits your mouth, how does it feel? Is it cool air coming in, warm air leaving? How does it feel against your nostrils, your cheeks, your tongue? How does it feel against your mouth? And what we're doing is we're checking in, we're bringing ourselves into the physical body, taking ourselves out of the mind, out of the critical thinking mind, and into the physical feeling body. Because lots of us spend most of our time up in our head, and it's nice to come back down into our physical body because our being isn't just our mind, it's our emotions and our physical body too. And now I want to get you to imagine that you have a squeegee, like a magical squeegee that's used for washing windows, cleaning windows. And from the top of your head down to the tips of your toes, we're going to wipe that squeegee clean and all the tension out of our body. We're going to imagine the squeegee is like wiping the tension out and off of our bodies. So starting from the top of our head, our face. So feel free to move your cheeks and your face and your neck around, your shoulders nice and relaxed, your jaw nice and relaxed. Your shoulders, give your shoulders a nice roll. Imagine all that tension being wiped out of your shoulders and your arms, your elbows. Give your fingers a waggle, get all the tension out of your hands and your wrists and your fingers. Your chest, your spine, your upper spine, your back, your midriff, your belly, all your internal organs. The squeegee's wiping any tension out of your body, out of your internal organs, your tummy. Your tummy's nice and relaxed. No need to hold anything in, any tension in. Your lower body. See if you can really relax your lower body and not hold any tension in your lower body. Relax your buttocks muscles and relax all the muscles down there. Keep breathing nice and gently. And then we're going to wipe the tension out of the thighs, the tops of the hips, the tops of the legs, the thighs, the knees, the calves. Wipe, wipe, wipe. We're wiping all that tension out with the magical squeegee. Our ankles, give your ankles a roll. And then give your feet a waggle. Give your toes a waggle and get all that tension out. And imagine there's a pressure cooker and we've just taken the lid off and any excess tension or pressure is exiting out of your toes. And while we're down at our feet, we're going to imagine that we have some tree roots coming out of the bottom of our feet. They're magical tree roots, just like our magical squeegee. And they're going to enter down into the floor and then into the walls and foundation of your building if you're up high. say first, second, third floor of a building, even higher, you can imagine that the tree roots are winding down the walls and the floor of the building and deep into the foundation. And you can plunge those roots as far into the ground as you feel safe to do. So I like to take my roots, imagine my roots going quick as lightning, plugging into the core of the earth, plugging into Mother Earth, Mother Gaia. And then we're going to imagine like breathing in and soaking up all that tasty grounding energy back up into our bodies. Breathe it in. And as we breathe out, we're breathing out anything that in our day, our week, our month, our year so far. We're breathing in that beautiful, free grounding energy from the earth into our bodies. And you can imagine it traveling up your feet, your ankles, your legs, your calves, your knees, your thighs, your hips, and up into your internal organs. And it's like meeting all of your cells and traveling through your bloodstream and all of your important systems, and almost like resetting your body, all your cells and everything. And as it works its way up to the top of your head, it creates like a fountain that comes bursting out the top of your head and all around your body. And it's almost as if it's like washing your energy clean all around your body and creating a nice bubble or a nice sphere of safety and warmth and protection and all those yummy, really relaxing and relieving energies. And if you want to call your roots back up into your body, you can, or you can leave them where they are. Sometimes I like to leave them where they are because that means that I'm fully grounded for however long it is. Because sometimes we can be up here, our energy can be like way up, and it's really nice to just bring our energy back into the ground and get ourselves nice and grounded. So take a nice deep breath in and out again. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the room. Okay. So, how's everyone feeling after that? Self-esteem better, Cameron. Oh, I'm so glad, Ashley. Great. Perfect. And you can do this exercise any time of day. I do it all the time. Just to give myself that little like zap of calming, grounding energy. I just take a moment for myself, a couple of minutes, and just do that exercise. It doesn't have to be as long as that. You can do it like within a couple of minutes. I think I sent out, or maybe I posted it on the Facebook group, a link to my YouTube videos, because I have that grounding meditation on a YouTube video that I made. So I might send that out in an email this week, just to write that down so I remember. Yeah. So self-esteem. Oh, Raquel, you started doing it during your day. So calming. Amazing. It is so calming. It's so good. So I'm just going to make a note of that grounding meditation email. Okay, perfect. Okay. Tonight, we're going to talk about self-esteem. So we've already talked about the mental body if you were here last week. If you weren't here last week, I would encourage you to go into the Facebook group and have a watch at our video from last week. We talked about self-concept and the mental body. We talked about our mental diet and what we consume on a daily basis and how that can affect us. Well, tonight we're going to talk about our emotions and our feelings. I see self-esteem as part of the emotional body and how we feel about ourselves. I also see it as what we believe to be true about ourselves, because beliefs don't just start in the mind. Beliefs, I feel, start in the physical body, in the emotional body. When we believe something, we tend to believe it with all of our being. So I feel like beliefs actually live within the emotional body. what we believe to be true about ourselves and the world is what we're going to experience in the world. So if you believe that nothing is working out for you and life is a disaster and people are bad, then that is what you will experience, because your subconscious mind, which is programmed to that belief, will be scanning your environment constantly, looking for evidence, because our mind loves evidence. It thrives off of evidence. Whereas if you believe that everything always works out for you, and the world is actually, it's a strange place, but for you, it's good. It's working out. And that people are who they are and you meet them where they are. And generally, you're only available for good people, right? Then that's what you're going to experience, because your subconscious, which is constantly scanning your environment for evidence, is what you're going to have in your life and experience that. So what we believe to be true about ourselves and life. I also see self-esteem as being what we allow to influence our emotions. So last week we talked about our mental diet and what we're allowing into our mind. And this week I want to talk about our emotions and what we're allowing to influence how we feel, whether that be external circumstances, other people, television, media, whatever it is, society, religion, all of these things, which can influence how we feel, our emotions. I also feel like our self-esteem is our emotional baseline. So how we feel, our baseline, our emotional baseline is like how we feel on a consistent daily basis without even having to think about it, right? Your baseline is like your level that you don't even have to think. It's just how you are. It's just who you be and how you are. And with self-esteem comes discernment, integrity, and self-trust. So the higher your self-esteem, the higher your discernment, your integrity, and your trust is for yourself. The lower your self-esteem, the lower your discernment, right? You're probably maybe not going to practice any discernment. You might not have any integrity. And of course, when I say integrity, I mean integrity in terms of your values, right? What you value in life, and your trust. If you have low self-esteem, you may have zero trust for yourself and even maybe for other people, or perhaps we have been encouraged to put our trust and all of our trust only in other people. So symptoms of low self-esteem are, and I feel like there's so many, but right now I want to cover these ones. So feeling unworthy, feeling unlovable, feeling not good enough, feeling powerless, feeling uncertain of the future, feeling depressed, feeling anxious, feeling unsafe to be seen, feeling desperate to be seen, feeling unsafe to set and stick to boundaries, feeling shy, like fearful, and experiencing lack. So that could be lack of money, lack of positive relationships, lack of love, lack of anything really. So self-esteem really is about our feelings. And when we have an experience, whether that is a first-hand experience or we've been projected onto by someone else who's had an experience and they are trying to influence us, it starts off in our emotional body and then becomes a thought. We put so much power on our minds, but actually I feel like our real power is in our emotional body, because our mind is influenced by our emotions. Our thoughts are influenced by our emotions. And this is so prevalent for so many of us because we've never been taught how to manage our emotions. We've never been taught how to feel. We've been programmed and taught to fear emotions, and that emotions are a bad thing. We've never been given the space to manage or work through or integrate and heal our emotions. We've been minimized. Our emotions have been minimized. Our emotions have been disregarded. Our emotions have been rejected and shut down. depression is when we depress our emotions. Depression happens when we depress our emotions. And I feel like anxiety is when we overthink our emotions. So I feel like our emotions have a lot of power, but many of us are, I don't want to use the word misusing that power because we don't know how to use the power of our emotions. When you feel something, when you believe something to be true, when you feel it, it's so powerful. Our emotions are not bad or wrong. I believe that our emotions are a powerful guidance system that informs us of our needs, right? Our emotions inform us of what we need, of our needs. Usually, if we have a negative emotion, it means at some level that our needs are not being met. So the symptoms of low self-esteem, like feeling unworthy, feeling unlovable, feeling not good enough, feeling powerless, these exist because at some level, our needs, our emotional needs have not been met. And I don't want to point fingers or blame anyone, because really the system that we live in or have been living in has not been designed for us to get our needs met, emotional needs met. The focus has been on materialism and doing, right? The focus has been on achieving, having, and doing, and not on being. I feel like for the past couple of 100 years, certainly, we've been human doings and not human beings. So, and we've reached a tipping point. We've reached a crux. We've reached a crossroads where humanities have been given a choice point, and we can keep going down the path of the past couple of 100 years, the materialistic path. There's a word for it. There's a scientific phrase, and I forget what it is, but a group of scientists in the 1800s, late 1800s and early 1900s, decided that if you can't see something, it doesn't exist. There was a name for them. They were all about physical, right? Seeing is believing. And that, I feel, has really affected us in a not so positive way. But I also believe that we had to go through it, as painful and as crappy as it has been. I feel like in order to know what you do want, sometimes we have to know what we don't want. And we know what we don't want. We know that we don't want to feel powerless. So we don't want to feel not good enough. We don't want to feel unlovable. We want to feel lovable. We want to feel empowered. We want to feel good enough. We want to feel excited and free. So now we know what we don't want. We can say, okay, let's put this to bed. Let's put this era of ignoring, suppressing, depressing, rejecting, minimizing our emotions to bed. Let's end it. It's an end of an era. And let's focus on feeling again. So that, I feel, is what creates and causes our low self-esteem, is our emotions, our emotional needs not being met in some way. If we have experienced a traumatic event or consistent traumatic events from an early age up until whenever now, it's not so much about the event itself, but as our emotional needs being met, after the event, to process the event. So you could take a group of 5 children, and 2 of the children have a positive support system. In fact, the 5 children all experience the same event, right? It could be a natural disaster. And 2 of the children have a support system in place where they are able to get their emotional needs met. And 3 children don't have that system in place. The children that do have the support system in place will have a very different life experience from that, from the children who have not had their emotional needs be met. And the consequence of our emotional needs not being met after experiencing difficult circumstances or traumatic events creates unhelpful perspectives and beliefs, limiting beliefs, and dominant negative emotions about the self. So these children that have experienced a traumatic circumstance, right, like a earthquake or something, the 2 that have the support group where they can get their needs, emotional needs met, will go on to have perspectives perhaps that are healthy, supporting. The 3 that don't have their needs met may go on to face further adversity and further difficult experiences and challenging circumstances, because they may believe that it was their fault, right? They had to do something different in order to stop it from happening, or they may feel powerless. They may have experienced post-traumatic stress disorder, flashbacks. When we experience something difficult and our needs, our emotional needs, so what does it look like to have our emotional needs met? Being listened to, allowing us to express our emotions, saying, I feel like this, and having someone go, okay. Having someone validate that emotion, having someone see you experiencing, witnessing us having that feeling without unsolicited advice, without saying, oh, you'll be fine, without minimizing it. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Without rejecting it. Don't be so silly. Having our emotional needs met is allowing us to feel our feelings and not being shamed for feeling our feelings. When we don't have that, emotions are energy in motion, and energy needs to move. So when we speak our feelings, or when we feel our feelings, we are moving that energy. When we push it down and suppress it and depress it and reject it and pretend it's not there because we've been shamed or dismissed or minimized or told whatever, it doesn't matter, we are boxing that energy up in a little box or a little ball, and we're just hiding it, we're putting it away. And that energy that needs to move is stuck, is blocked. And I truly believe, from the people that I work with, blocked energy creates so many problems in the physical body, because our mental body and our emotional body and our physical body are all related. It's all one system. It's all one being. It's all one system. So when we have an experience where we have an energetic experience and we're not safe, it's not safe for us to express it and move that energy out of our bodies and feel that feeling. Because feeling it, speaking it, that's moving it around our system. Containing that energy can create so many problems. Aches and pains, diseases, X, Y, and Z. So if we were to express how we felt and be seen, be witnessed, be validated, even feel our feelings. When we feel our feelings, for a moment, is painful. It can be painful if it's a negative feeling. But because we're allowing that energy to move through the body by feeling it, it can dissipate. It moves on. If we were around people who themselves were minimized, shut down, not allowed to feel their feelings, witnessing another being feel their feelings or express their feelings may be triggering for them. So their only reaction is, I don't like it. I don't want it. Please stop. Stop feeling your feelings. Stop expressing your feelings, because it makes me feel, it reminds me of my pain, and my pain is too painful. Or it's not safe for me to feel my pain. It's not safe for me to express my emotions. So therefore, please don't. But when we're little, we take everything personally. We're self-centered, not in a negative way, but in a way that is assisting our development. What an adult or a caregiver or parent does and says, we take extremely personally. If they shut us down, minimize us, whatever, stop us from feeling our feelings and expressing our feelings, usually we take that on as shameful, bad. It's bad for me to feel my feelings. It's bad for me to express my feelings. It's shameful. I'm not allowed to express my feelings or feel my feelings because it's bad. And shame is the belief that we are fundamentally bad, flawed, wrong. It's wrong. I'm wrong. I'm bad. I'm flawed for feeling my feelings or having a feeling. So it's extremely powerful and not in a good way. It's very detrimental. There are stories of when the white man, let's say, went to the Americas and saw tribes of natives, how they behaved socially within their groups. And whenever a member of the tribe was having a difficult experience, traumatic experience, perhaps they'd had an accident or they had lost a loved one or something painful, the whole group would step up and become a support system to that group. Because that one person, they understood the link between the mental, the emotional, and the physical body, and how if one person is out of sync or if one person is out of alignment, then that affects the whole group. Think about when you're at home or when you were a child or growing up or even at school, And there was one person in the class who was disruptive, and how that set the tone for the whole environment. Or one parent that was angry, and that set the tone. So these natives, these original people, were in touch with their emotions and would encourage and support that member of the group to feel their feelings, because they understood that when we allow our feelings to move around our body, it dissipates. We're releasing it, we're letting it go. When we speak our feelings, our emotions, we are again moving the energy and allowing it to just be. And of course, because that was so different from this Western practice of, at the time, religion, shame, Catholicism, Christianity from the West, which was very much shame-based, corporal punishment, materialistic, emotions are weakness, patriarchal. It was eradicated. That way of life was not completely wiped out, but pretty much destroyed. And those members of those groups, tribes, those groups, were reprogrammed using trauma to the ways of the West, the ways of limiting beliefs, of shame, of not good enoughness, powerlessness, abuse, neglect. Because someone who is beaten down is controllable. Someone who is in touch with their emotions, someone who is able and safe to express themselves freely, is untouchable and empowered and free. And a system that wants to suppress and oppress, that's not wanted. That's not good. Freedom is, control. It's all about control. And think about our immune system. So last week I spoke about how when we are in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, there's a fifth F, flop. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop. Flop is like play dead, or just completely shut down. Your whole body goes weak. When we have thoughts, negative thoughts, couple that with a triggered feeling and set off our fight, flight, freeze, fawn, flop system, our nervous system, our extremely finely tuned nervous system, all of our other systems get impacted. Our immune system gets shut down, reproductive system gets shut down, circulatory, endocrine system, all of these powerful system, adrenal system, all of these systems that are so powerful and run our human bodies become affected. When we allow ourselves to feel and process our emotions, we can then reprogram our thoughts and choose better feelings. The neural pathways that we had before, the fear, it's not safe, they're not good enoughness, the powerlessness, become weaker. We can break them and we can create new neural pathways into power, empowerment, freedom, relief, good enoughness, lovable, unconditional love. But these are strong, these old ones are strong because we've been practicing them for decades and we've collected all the evidence for them. So it does take time. Raquel, you said, this makes me think about generational trauma. Absolutely. If we think about a couple of 100 years ago, let's say 400 years ago, 500 years ago, maybe even 1,000 years ago, when human beings were living in touch with nature more, when we were more tribal based, I guess, very similar to the natives of the continents were, and sometimes some of them are still, luckily. How different that is to how we live now. And it's really narcissistic, I feel, to think that we are the best we've ever been. Okay, we're probably technologically advanced than we've ever been, but emotionally and spiritually, mentally, maybe even physically, there's a deficit there, right? And I get really excited when I think about like the future and how, and this time that we're in, it's like a birth of this new world, right? Aldous Huxley, it's a new world if you can face it or take it, whatever he says. And I feel like it's time for us to drop the baggage, literally, of the past 100, 200, 500,000 years, whatever, and create a new way of being. And about all those generations that have come before us that have felt powerless to their emotions, felt powerless to their external circumstances, felt like they weren't good enough, felt like they had to be human doings instead of human beings, that died young because they were eating the wrong thing, and they weren't allowing their emotions to move. They were keeping everything inside. How we really have an opportunity here, an amazing opportunity to be the leaders of this new world. And by that, I mean, we're leading ourselves. We don't have to lead others if we don't want to. Some of us will, but some of us can just be leading ourselves and be setting an example of how we want the world to be, because it starts with us. It starts with us making decisions, making choices that are the better feeling choice, the better feeling thought. So, and generational trauma is so powerful because not only is it social, it's also cellular. There's a book by a German psychologist, Bessel van der Kolk, called "The Body Keeps the Score." It's a very interesting book. It's not a medical book, but it's a scientific psychology book. But it's really interesting, and he talks about how the body keeps the score of trauma and how it affects us cellularly. There's also The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. That's a really interesting book as well, about how epigenetics, genetically, we are affected. And it's almost as if people 500 years ago knew that when they were cleansing, right? When they were doing their ethnic cleansing and things, even now, right? It's almost as if they know that trauma will affect us in such a way that will affect our children and their children and their children. Oh, nice. Cool. Is that the Bruce Lipton one or the Body Keeps the Score one? Because they're both really good. Body Keeps the Score, cool. Yeah, have a look for Biology of Belief as well. It's really, really fascinating. What Bruce Lipton says with the Biology of Belief is that our belief systems affect our bodies, affect the biology of our bodies, the chemistry of our bodies, and that the belief of our parents and their parents is our beliefs, not only because it's social spoken and it's like passed down through the culture, but it's also cellular. It's also in our bodies, in our cells of our bodies. That energy, right, that we've that has been stagnant and depressed and stuck in our grandparents' bodies has affected our parents' bodies and now is affecting our bodies. But what is so fascinating about it and about what these books talk about, the purpose of these books is to tell us that this is not permanent, that we actually have the power to change it. Bruce Lipton talks about placebos and nocebos in the biology of belief, and how placebos are so fascinating that we literally, it's the belief that it's going to work. Like they do blind tests of medications, and the person thinks they're getting a cancer medication, but they're actually getting a Tic Tac or sugar pill. And so more than half of the people who get this sugar pill, their symptoms and their tumors and whatever go down, minimize, get smaller, which is fascinating. So our beliefs are so powerful. Whatever you believe to be true is going to be your reality. There's scientific evidence for this. And no matter where we are, genetically, culturally, physically, mentally, socially, whatever, it doesn't have to be our truth. We have the power to choose something different. It takes work, it takes consistency, it takes consistent making decisions. It takes sometimes a couple of steps back, right? Or a couple more steps forward and a step back. And it's like that non-linear like healing, it's like, a big scribble, but it is absolutely possible. So how do we raise our self-esteem? If our self-esteem is low, right, we could have experienced traumatic events, which could have led to us having a perspective that, or led us to develop a false self and roles such as people pleasing and having to sacrifice ourselves for other people and for other things, for not really caring and looking after ourselves, for feeling shame and guilt all the time because of something that someone said to us once. And it's like we've created that neural pathway, and that neural pathway has become really strong, and that's just our belief now. Our belief is that I'm not good enough and I'm a bad person and I should be ashamed of myself, XYZ. How do we get out of that? I believe, and I teach and I practice in my coaching and counseling practice, that awareness is empowerment. Once we become aware of our limiting beliefs and our dominant negative emotions, that is so powerful. That is like so powerful. It's the first step, right? Step one, becoming aware of what we've got going on at an emotional level. And then we work to create evidence as to why that belief is not relevant to us. And that could be things like, I feel this way because I feel not good enough, because so-and-so made me feel like I wasn't good enough my whole life. We reframe it. We look for evidence as to why actually that has nothing to do with us. How we feel, how we've been made to feel, usually has got zero to do with us, but because it maybe happened to us at such a young age, and because at that young age we were so like self-focused and we took everything personally, that of course it has to be true. Like when I think about working with people and myself, who've always felt like a parent didn't like us. And that creates a perspective of, if they don't love me, then who will? I'm unlovable. And if we've experienced that really young, then that's going to be our baseline because of this neural pathway, right? I'm unlovable. It's our baseline, right? Is that frequent, consistent emotion that's just there. It just is. Our lovability, that has nothing to do with it. That literally was another person, another human being projecting their emotional state onto us. We can use logic. We can use understanding that the things that happened to us were tough and really bad sometimes, the negative things that happened to us. But because we perhaps didn't have the emotional support that we needed, that is why we feel the way we do. And in order for us to feel better, we have to create emotional support for ourselves. We have to relearn and teach ourselves how to support ourselves, and also find systems and groups and people who can support us in a really healthy way. We can also look at our values. What do we value in life? Are we living in integrity with our values? Do we trust ourselves? Can we practice discernment? Are we worthy? Are we worthy of positive experiences? Really? And why would we not be? I just love questioning. Like, whenever someone comes to me with a statement, with a limiting belief or a perspective, I love to really explore that. And because that is that person's truth that they've been carrying around with them. But actually it's not their truth. It was someone else's most of the time. Someone else's that was projected onto them for whatever reason. And actually our truth is that we are lovable. And if we've done anything bad in the past, it's probably because we didn't know any better. And because we didn't have that support, so perhaps lacking in that support system, we have been punishing ourselves for a very long time. And because of that, we can't trust ourselves. Or we've been made to believe that we can't trust ourselves, especially if we've grown up with a narcissistic parent or a parent with a personality disorder or something like that, where they are the power, they are the one with the opinions that are right, they're the one with the truth, and that we're not allowed to go against that. We're not allowed to have our own truth. We can also change our focus. So whatever our focus is on is what we're going to get. Wherever we put our energy, that grows, right? Wherever we put our focus on, that's what becomes our reality. So remember last week when I was talking about our mental diet, the conversations that we have with ourselves, and how important that is. It's the same with our emotions. So if we are around people who we don't feel good around, or we're in circumstances and situations that don't feel good, but because of obligation, we're putting ourselves there, or because we believe that we don't deserve anything better, or perhaps we're self-sabotaging or self-sacrificing or people-pleasing, or we're trying to get something out of it that actually goes against our truth, that's what we're putting our focus on. And when we actually drill down, tap in to our emotions, they don't feel good. I say, if it's not hell yes, it's a heck no. And I have really fought that over the past couple of years since I've started doing this work, because I grew up in an environment where you just had to do the thing you had to sacrifice yourself. You had to give up a part of yourself, or you had to do the thing, even if you didn't want to do the thing. You just had to struggle and suffer through it, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to suffer and we're here to struggle. And I don't believe that by any means at all. I don't believe that we're here to suffer. I believe that's been used against us to control us and manipulate us and make us fit into this system for however many hundreds of years. And that's why everything's getting shaken up right now. It's because the system is like, doesn't fit anymore. So many people are, especially after the pandemic, when people had time to sit and think and feel, oh my goodness, the whole world had time to think and feel, perhaps for the first time in their lives. And it caused absolute mayhem. But it was amazing. All these people who were thinking and feeling. And I feel like now, after having that period of time, we're like, what the hell? Like, why were we can't go back to that. We can't go back to the way that we were before that time. We can't unsee, we can't unfeel, we can't unthink. So changing our focus, right? Environmentally, socially, work, whatever it is that doesn't line up with our values and is making us feel a way that's not beneficial for us, is so powerful. Taking a step back from people who perhaps you felt obligated to be around, or perhaps you felt like they were bringing something right to the table, even though they didn't know what it was, for fear of being abandoned and rejected. And let me tell you, as somebody who I have been going no contact with family members for a while now, with abusive, manipulative, narcissistic family members, my fear of rejection and abandonment was so intense that I put up with so much crap for so many years. And when I set a boundary and said, please do not treat me like this and do not speak to me like this anymore, I'm no longer available for this kind of behavior, that was not met with that was not met well. And that abandonment wounds and rejection wounds were like, oh my gosh, so intense. Their reaction actually like said everything that I needed to know. And it was made it a lot easier for me to take that step back. That fear of abandonment and that fear of rejection, after a period of time, has actually turned into relief and freedom. And now I'm hindsight, right? Hindsight is powerful. Now I'm looking back and going, wow, like I really put up with a lot of crap for a long time because I was led to believe that that's what love was. That's what I was worthy of. It had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with where they were at an emotional level. That fear of abandonment and rejection was like, because I had this obligation to these people, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? They're your family. But actually, the freedom and relief that I feel from not having to deal with their BS, oh, it's like, it's a weight that's been lifted off my being. And I am able to be more confident. I'm able to show up because I do not have to live in fear of their criticism and their rejection and their minimizing. I can express myself with more confidence. It's safe for me to be seen because they're blocked on everything, so all social media. So I don't have to worry about talking about things. And like, for a long time, for my first business, which was 2010, that I started. In fact, it was my second business, 2010. I had a nonprofit, 2010. And I wasn't running that business for me. I was running that business to prove that I was good, to prove that I was good enough and that I was a good person, because I'd been shamed so much in childhood and growing up that I believed that I was fundamentally bad, flawed, and wrong, and I had to do this thing in order to prove myself, to prove that I wasn't bad, to prove that I wasn't flawed, to prove that I wasn't wrong. I self-sacrificed. I burnt out multiple times because that wasn't the only business that I was running. I was running a couple more. It was a constant battle to try and prove myself. And every time I posted on social media, every time I showed up to events, I had that voice in my head that was telling me I wasn't good enough, that I was unlovable, that it wouldn't matter how hard I tried, it still wasn't good enough, that I was powerless. And I couldn't be myself. I couldn't be my true self. It wasn't safe for me to show up as myself. And now I'm honoring how I feel and saying no, saying hell no, heck no to anything that does not bring me joy. And being around those people did not bring me joy. I would get depressed for days, maybe weeks after I'd come home to my partner, and he would have to play therapist for a week or two after coming home from visiting with those people. That's not freedom. That's not joy. That's not happiness. That's me self-punishing myself. That's me allowing other people to affect my emotions. I would love it. I would love to get to a point in my life and really work hard on that neural pathway to get to the stage where it doesn't matter where I am or who I'm with, I can be myself. But right now, I'm working on showing up and feeling confident, feeling like working on my self-esteem, working on my self-concept, telling myself beneficial things, telling myself positive, helpful stories, being kind to myself, checking in with my inner child. And this is another way that we can raise our self-esteem, is doing the inner child work. Building a relationship with ourselves is the most powerful thing we can do, because we're going to be with ourselves our whole entire lives. You've got to live inside your head, so make it a nice place to live. Make it a warm, safe, cozy, comfortable, beautiful environment to be. You've got to feel your feelings. So cultivate the ones that feel good. And yes, we're going to experience things that aren't going to feel so good. Honor them too. Honor our emotions, because no emotions are bad or wrong. They're just your guidance system. Give yourself what you need. Give yourself the emotional support. Give that inner child the emotional support, especially if you've experienced difficult things in childhood, which most people who have confidence, esteem, and concept problems, I don't want to use the word problems, challenges, let's use the word challenge, have had some stuff happen in early childhood, which has affected our perspective of ourselves, which has affected our baseline, our emotional baseline, and our belief of ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, what we think of ourselves, and how we show up in the world with ourselves, our self-concept, self-esteem, self-confidence. So if we were to be with, imagine, visualize, look at a photograph, whatever you want to do, draw a picture of a younger version of yourself and be there. Listen to them. Your inner child will want to speak to you. It may want to tell you, you may need to work on trust, right? If that inner child hasn't had any positive influences or many positive influences in life, especially from adults, if you are, older or grown up, then it may take a little time for that inner child to trust you, to want to open up to you, right? But it's possible, and they can and they will, especially if you keep showing up. How are you today? What's happening? What's going? How are you feeling? Tapping in, visualizing, imagining, using photograph, drawing a picture of that inner child, finding things, teddies, toys, things that trigger things that help to awaken your inner child, get them excited, playing games, being creative, all of these things, honoring your inner child. build a relationship with the self that experienced the original circumstances that caused the low self-esteem in the first place. The bullying, the abuse, the neglect, whatever it was. Listen to that self. They perhaps never had anyone to listen to them, or if they were, it could have been shut down, rejected, suppressed, minimized, ignored. Now it's our turn. Now it's our time to step up and be that listener, be that space, be that support network for that person, for that inner child. And actually, when we do this, when we get practice with it, we can actually become really good listeners. We can actually hold space for other people who are going through challenging circumstances, which is really powerful. And we need more. We need more people in the world who other people feel safe around, because there's plenty of people in the world who are making people feel really unsafe, are triggering people, who are upsetting others. So I feel like practicing listening to your inner child, nurturing that inner child and being with them and showing up for them and listening to them, honoring them, validating them, witnessing them, allowing them to express their emotions, feeling our feelings, will all make us better listeners and create a better life experience, a higher quality of life, I feel. Give them and give yourself the emotional support that you perhaps didn't have. Use practitioners, use coaches, counselors, therapists, people who are trained to listen, people who are taught, people who it's their job to do it. Find people, friends, whoever, family members who you feel safe expressing your emotions to. Have discernment, practice discernment, because someone who is a practitioner is trained to manage their own emotions, which many other people who are not trained practitioners don't know how to do. So when we share something like feelings, it may trigger a wound that they have within themselves, whereas a practitioner is less likely to be triggered because they are trained to manage their emotions. Most good practitioners themselves have to have a support network, coaches, counselors, and therapists, because they understand the power of emotions and how we have to be always moving that energy out of our bodies. How is somebody who feels not good enough going to help others to feel good enough? How is somebody who feels powerless going to help others feel empowered? So having discernment around who we're opening up to and expressing our emotions to is really important. Trust your feelings, trust your gut, trust your emotions, even if you doubt them, even if they feel weird. If in doubt, I always say, if in doubt, don't do it. And if it's not heck yes, if it's not hell yes, it's a heck no. Feeling the fear and doing it anyway, feeling the fear and doing it anyway can actually affect us negatively by re-triggering us, by pushing through the stuff, by pushing through the fear, can actually have detrimental effects. So what we got in the chat here. So Ashley says, it made me think life is too short to be stuck in a job that makes you miserable. Yeah, absolutely. So we're taught, aren't we? We're taught, or we're encouraged, or we are just expected to put up with things, put up with bad behavior, put up with difficult experiences and circumstances, put up with having no money, put up with a narcissistic boss or family member, but to just put up with it, right? Makes you stronger. Does it? Does it though? Oh, it's character defining, it's character building. Is it? Or is it actually detrimental? Is it chipping away at our self-esteem? Because we're allowing ourselves to be influenced, especially if we're allowing ourselves to be influenced emotionally by their behavior, by what they're doing. Absolutely, actually. Some people find misery pleasureful, pleasing. Has anyone seen the movie Monsters Inc., where they use fear as their power source? And when they transition to using joy as their power source, it's much more dynamic, and they actually end up blowing all the circuits because it's so powerful. It's way more powerful than fear. So people can. So actually, it's about the factory. The monsters work in a power station, and the monsters universe is powered by the screams of children. It's quite dark actually. But it's a really beautiful movie. I really enjoyed it. And the main characters go in through closet wardrobe doors and scare the kids and collect the kids' screams and use the screams to power their whole universe, power their world. But one day a little girl, like toddler, kind of escapes and ends up like going into the universe, and she's not scared of the monsters at all. And it turns out that actually joy can power their universe way better than fear ever could. And I feel like that's such an amazing metaphor for this world, that people will use fear and misery and anger and the negative emotions to power themselves. I don't want to use the word empower, but they do power themselves from using it. Most of the time because they need to be right. As human beings, we have this built-in programming operating system where we need to be right. It feels good to be right, especially if we have any fears of rejection or abandonment. Having others agree with us is like, or feeling like we're right and agreeing with ourselves feels good. So if someone is saying everything is bad, I'm having a crap day, so-and-so's an a-hole, everything's miserable and rubbish, and just generally being miserable for the sake of it, they're creating their reality, right? Wherever you put your focus grows. And when their subconscious mind is scanning for the misery, so that when it shows up, they can go, haha, I'm right. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because they keep behaving in that way, they keep experiencing those emotions, and because they're right, that is what they're experiencing, that's what they're creating, that's where their focus is, so they create more. So people can be powered by that energy, but it's not clean energy. it's not as nearly as dynamic and beautiful than joy and freedom and relief and abundance, right? And being empowered and making decisions based on how you feel, not what you think. When we make decisions based on how we feel about it truly, we can make better decisions. Whereas if we're making decisions on what we think about it, using our critical thinking mind, based on obligation, based on what other people might think, comparisons, based on a belief system that we're not good enough, and that we need to show up, or we're desperate for whatever, attention, money, whatever, so we have to do this thing because we need it so badly, then we're going to make decisions that are not going to serve us and they're not going to benefit us. So, what do you believe to be true about yourself? What are you allowing to influence your emotions? What is your emotional baseline? And are you practicing discernment, integrity, and self-trust? So let's take a wee moment. This is the basis of all the work that I do. I like to focus on the emotions, the emotional body, mainly because it's been completely disregarded by most of society for the last X amount of hundreds of years. And it's actually where our power is, because our emotions influence our mind and our physical body in good ways and bad ways, in not so good ways. So how do you feel about yourself? How do you feel? What's your emotional baseline? Take a moment, take a nice deep breath in and out, and place your hands in the center of your chest if you want to. Tap in. What emotion comes up on a daily basis more than others? When you wake up in the morning, first thing, how do you feel? When you go to bed at night and you're falling asleep, how do you feel? When you're communicating with other people, how do you feel? When you're in working, how do you feel? Because that is going to tell you everything that you need to know. That's going to create the awareness that you need to empower yourself. Feel free to share in the chat. I, for a very long time, felt a mixture of depression and anxiety. I had suppressed and depressed so many emotions from early childhood. In fact, I was depressed probably from a very young age. And I had anxiety, an anxiety disorder. I had constant panic attacks, and I was a wreck most of the time. I had worries. I was worried. I was a worrier. I think I've shared this story before. I had worry dolls that I used to keep underneath my pillow at night, little like wooden or little straw dolls, tiny little things in a woven bag, and you're supposed to tell your worries to these dolls, put them under your pillow, and go to sleep. And in the morning, your worries would be gone. My worries would never be gone. They would always bounce back. They always come back because I didn't have a support. I didn't have the space to have my emotional needs met. I had my physical needs met. I had a roof over my head. I had food on the table. Up until recently, I believed that I had a fairly good childhood because all the boxes were ticked, right? But actually, when I tapped into it, there was no emotion. The only emotions that I experienced were negative emotions. There was no joy. There was very little laughter. There was a lot of anger, a lot of abuse, a lot of emotional neglect. And that has been really, really interesting for me to remember and come back into. Because I don't believe that anyone deserves that. And I very much don't blame my family, because they were only doing what they knew what to do. They were only doing what they'd been taught, and there is no handbook on how to human. They were just doing what they needed to do from whatever emotional level they were at. Once I started working through my feelings from a very young age, and this has been ongoing for a number of years now, once I started allowing myself to feel my feelings, once I allowed myself to feel my feelings with support, right? Because sometimes when we're feeling our feelings and it gets too much, we can kind of spiral and get lost. So that's why I feel like it's so important for us to utilize practitioners, people who are trained to hold the space for us while we navigate those difficult feelings, painful feelings. And if we get too deep into it, they can pull us out, right? They're our lifeline. So giving myself space to feel, developing a relationship with my inner child, feeling the feelings and expressing the feelings allowed me to change my baseline. It allowed me to choose better feelings and better feeling thoughts, more beneficial thoughts, and unhooking from worry, unhooking from depression, unhooking from anxiety. Anxiety became no longer relevant. So instead of panic, I felt excitement. Instead of depression, I felt free and excited, joyful, present, patient, optimistic. Things that the people I was hanging out with for a long time would have poo-pooed or told me, oh, that's cheesy or that's whatever. But actually, it feels so good. It feels so good to have a baseline that is light and empowering. Raquel, I'm trying to figure out what the feeling is, but its general unease may be inadequate. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So it's usually the first one that pops into your head. If you don't know right now, that's your homework for this week. Your homework for this week is to take note of how you feel when you wake up in the morning. It's to take note of how you feel when you go to last thing at night, you go to sleep. It's a general baseline. Ashley says anxiety, worry, irritation about past events, numbness. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So similar question to what I asked last week. If you know what your baseline is, what benefit is there for cultivating and keeping these feelings? Just like last week, I asked, what benefit do we have for keeping and cultivating the thoughts that we have, the thoughts about ourselves? What benefit do we have in keeping these emotions relevant? We don't have to know why we feel them and where they came from, but sometimes that can be helpful too. What is the worst thing that could happen if we were to feel something different? What would be the worst thing that could happen if we were to tap into ease and capability? Not only are we adequate, but we're actually more than capable. We are more than good enough. What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? Raquel, that's really interesting. Okay, so fear of responsibility then. What must you believe to be true about yourself to think you'll have more responsibility? You're not capable of taking on certain things. Okay, perfect. So these things that we're taking on, are we not capable because we haven't been capable in the past, and there are things that we've done in the past and we weren't capable then? Or are we running a program that has been projected onto us from someone else? Like we've been told we're not capable, we've been made to feel like we're not capable, we've been made to believe we're not capable of certain things. Hi, Numpy Mellow. I worry a lot, and I see myself having mental obstacles to elevate further in anything I do. It's either my business, personally. I feel emotional and tired at times. Okay, perfect. Okay. So there's a book called The Obstacle is the Way. I think is it that's what it's called? The obstacle is the way, or the obstacle is the path. I feel like what would be the worst thing that could happen if there were no obstacles? If we didn't have to figure anything out. Obstacle is way. That's it. Thank you. Yes, that's it, Raquel. Thank you. What if we didn't have to figure anything out? We're so encouraged all the time that we have to figure things out. But what if we didn't have to figure it out? What if we could just be? What if we could stop being a human doing and be a human being? And the power of us focusing on how we want to feel would allow those obstacles or the things we have to figure out mentally, it would solve them for us. Albert Einstein, whenever he was solving a difficult equation, would go off and listen to music and dance. He took himself out of the energy of the problem and put himself into the energy of the solution. The energy of the solution is freedom, excitement, joy, energetic, emotionally light. So when we have obstacles, it can be really helpful for us to, because we're so programmed to be in the energy of the problem, taking ourselves into the energy of the solution by doing things and being and practicing being in the state of how we want to feel when we have achieved that figuring out of that obstacle or of the problem, can actually create the solution. So Albert Einstein, when he went off and danced and listened to music, the solution to the problem always came. It always showed up instantly, minutes later, hours later, in the middle of the night, when he was getting ready for work the next day. What benefit does worry bring? What's the worst thing that could happen if you no longer had to figure it out? What would be the worst thing to happen if you got into the energy of the solution and allowed things to happen for us, for you? Raquel says yes, but also being made to feel this way sometimes. Yeah, okay. Has the person who made you feel not capable, or people who made you feel incapable, do you think that they felt capable? Or perhaps were they projecting their uncapableness, whatever the word is, onto you? And what evidence do you have that says you're incapable? Because remember, we're all uncapable when we start doing something. But with practice and consistency, we become capable. We become so capable. Like going from negative emotions to positive emotions as being our baseline, right? When I was in depression and anxiety and not good enough and powerlessness, I was literally incapable of feeling better feelings. I had to like take baby steps up that ladder by dropping the end of the stick with the negative emotions, picking up the end of the stick with the better feeling emotions, and making that a daily practice of choosing. I want to choose to feel better. My pathway, my mind wants to go back to that place, but I understand that that place is not beneficial for me. and that I'm only feeling that way or thinking that thing because I've been programmed by other people, I've been projected onto, I have perhaps had past experiences where I've felt that way and experienced that bad thing. But I know that I can choose something different now. I believe they were projecting. That was my instant gut feeling. Over time, it eroded into an unpleasant way. Yeah, totally, totally. So that therefore had nothing to do with your capability, with your adequacy. That had everything to do with what they got going on at an emotional level. So that means we get to decide what's going on for us at an emotional level. Are we going to give our power away to other people by allowing them to dictate how we feel? Do they really deserve our emotional real estate? Our prime and, like, what's the word? Valuable emotional and mental real estate and energy. We're giving that to them. Every single time we allow their perspective to become our perspective, every time we allow their emotions to become our emotions, every time we allow them to dictate how we feel, we're not being our true selves. We're giving our power away. We're hurting ourselves. And we're also showing other people that that's how you have to be. Because remember, human beings don't do what you do. They don't do what you say. They do what you do. So other people are observing our behavior and learning. That's what you have to do. So if we want to influence people, the best way we can influence people is by being ourselves, by doing what we know to be right, integrity with our values, and choosing the better feelings. Wouldn't you rather be around somebody who is at ease, who is present, who is, and I'm not saying that we can't honor the negative feelings, right? Because it's about feeling our feelings and honoring the feelings. When we honor the feeling, feel the feeling, we then have an opportunity. It's like a golden opportunity to choose something different. How's everyone doing? I went over by a couple of minutes, I think. Yeah. How's everyone doing? So if we want to raise our self-esteem, it involves emotional work. And not a lot of people in the world are prepared to do the emotional work. So much so that they would rather do anything than do the emotional work. But the emotional work, I believe, is the only work. I've got a new affirmation that I've been playing with this week. And it is, the less I do, the faster I see results. Right? The less I do, I'm coming out of my human doing and being in my human being. The less I do, the faster I see results. Because my programming is still very much stuck in, or was very much stuck in, achieving and doing and hitting all the goals and ticking off all the boxes and all of these things. But actually, the emotional work, the feeling work, is being work. It's my human being. When I tap in and do the emotional work, that's really powerful work. I can create a whole new world for myself. I can create new relationships. I can create an amazing business. I can create a beautiful home. I can create so many awesome experiences. I can create a body and emotions and a life that is so good, so healthy, and so beneficial. So the emotional work, as important as the mental work is, the emotional work is really where it's at, because the mental work is triggered. The mental work is like a byproduct of the emotional work. And once we start doing the emotional work, it sets off a beautiful chain of reaction of events where we become an energetic match to other people who are doing the emotional work. And we can all get together and talk about the emotional work and talk about how sometimes it's really crap and sometimes it's amazing. We can have beautiful, open-minded, dynamic, interesting, fascinating conversations and hear each other's perspectives and differences in opinions and perspectives, and not feel fear, not feel afraid of rejection, and be present with each other's company. And it's so beautiful and it's so fun, and I wish it on everyone because it's so freeing and relieving, and it's just, yes, so satisfying. Yay, good. I'm glad, Raquel and Ashley. That's so true. This happened to me today. When you relax and just be, it's when you have those realizations. Yes, relax and just be. I love it. Okay. Let me know how you're doing, and we'll finish up in the next couple of minutes. This week, track your emotional baseline. Ask yourself the questions. What would be the worst thing to happen if I were to play with a better feeling? I'm just writing this down so I remember. What benefit do I have by keeping these feelings relevant? Am I suppressing feelings, or am I feeling my feelings? Am I allowing myself the space and support to feel my feelings? If you want to take your journey, take your integration, your healing to the next level, come and be a client. Come and work with me personally, because these classes are great and I love doing them. I'll probably do them for a very long time. But it's surface level stuff. We can't really go in. We can't go in with the laser focus. The laser focus is where it's at. When you are supported by a practitioner, you are given space, you're held, you're supported, you have the opportunity to feel your feelings and express your feelings and do the emotional work. And it takes as long as it takes, but it can be a lot more efficient when we have a guide to help us. So if you've been doing these classes for a while, or if you're pretty new to them and you are not seeing much of a change in your self-concept or your self-esteem or your confidence, then let's get together and have a chat, because having one-on-one sessions might be the next thing that can really help you pinpoint things that perhaps you by yourself are struggling to do. This work is so fascinating. I love it. I love aha moments, right? Like my sessions with clients, we sometimes have aha moments where that human being has been carrying something around with them for so long, and it'll take me asking one question, and then the light bulb goes off, the light bulb moment or goes on, And it's like an aha moment of like, oh my gosh, like I've been carrying this around for so long and I didn't realize that's what it was. Or I didn't realize that I could give myself that space. I didn't realize I could see myself like that. Come and let's party, let's play. I'll put the link to a free chat with me, with confidence clarity calls in the Facebook group. I run these calls on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. These are my calls for the days for my free confidence clarity calls. So if you want to have a chat, then, and there's no obligation, obviously, it's just, we're just having a chat to pinpoint where the next step might be for you. I'll put the link in the Facebook group. And if you're not on Facebook, give me a shout on my email, which I will type in here. And I'm also going to put the link up for the Facebook group because, so that's my email, ionabarker1@gmail.com. I sometimes use my assistant email, but I'm just going to use that one just now. This is a link to the Facebook group if you haven't already joined. I'm trying to think if everyone here is in it. You all might be in it. If you want to watch the replay of tonight's masterclass for tonight's class, that's where the replay will be in Facebook, in the Facebook group. How's everyone doing? Are we all feeling complete? Do we have any other questions to ask or anything about anything at all? And if not, if you're feeling complete, yay, Dawn, you can actually do this. You're, oh, yes. Yes, I just want to share as well, Dawn's one of my clients, one of my private clients, and you're doing amazing. You're doing so good, Dawn. You're doing amazing work. You can't, everyone can do this. This is the power of it. Like everyone can absolutely, yeah. It's exciting times on planet Earth. Goodness, also, we've been waiting a while for exciting times, right? It's about time. Yay! Oh, you're so welcome. Have a beautiful evening, everyone. This is your opportunity to ask any questions, and if not, you're free to go. If you're feeling complete, then you're good to go, and I will see you in the Facebook group. Oh, yay! Good, I'm glad. If you haven't shared in the Facebook group, come and share in the Facebook group where you live, who you are, what you do, where you would like to experience more confidence. Because remember, this is a confidence group, right? So let's show up, hopefully after our class next week, where we're talking about self-confidence, the last pillar, self-confidence, how we show up in the world. We'll feel more safe to show up on social media and in the world and doing the things that we want to do. But yeah, come and say hi in the Facebook group. Yay, thanks, Raquel. You too. Have a great weekend, everyone. Have a good one. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry, I've gone over by quite a bit. You're so welcome, Olga. Good to see you. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. You're welcome. See you soon. Bye.